Hello, everyone. Welcome to A Fistful of Dice. My name is Matt, and welcome to the first session of a new little mini campaign that I'm going to be running in the world of Gloam, which is a world you can find in the Absolute Tabletop Book Adventure Kit, Shadows over Driftchapel, but it's also a world that exists outside of that book, and there's lots of different corners to this world to explore, so I'm looking forward to exploring it further with this absolutely phenomenal group of players that I have managed to gather around myself. I'm going to let them introduce themselves here shortly. Couple of quick notes. In the description, you can find everyone's character info, and there's also links to Shadows over Driftchapel if you are interested in checking out the world of Gloam and seeing more about it. The overlay tonight that we're using was made by our very own Lloyd. He's 2 rows below me. We have 90 players in this game, so he's way down there. But all the overlay stuff that you will see this evening, including the splash screens, was all done by Lloyd. You should definitely hit him up if you want some overlay stuff, because he does a good job. Real proud of him. Real proud of our boy making overlays. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm going to let players introduce themselves, and you can give, brief info about your character. You'll get a chance to properly narratively introduce them here soon, but if you want to tell us what your character's name is and a little bit about them, that would be good as well. So we'll just kind of go top to bottom, left to right here. So Barker, you're up first.
Hi, everyone. My name is Barker, and I am playing a character named Michele, who is a druidic sort of character with an affinity to spiders and other creepy things. And I'm really excited for this game. Thanks for running it, Matt. And you are going crazy with the number of people. You're tipping the scales here.
I know I used to be 4 max, but then it's like, I don't know, you get people posting interest and you're like, I can't not have that person in the game. That would be a disservice to myself and everybody. Cool. Thanks for joining me, man. It's always great to have you. Jeff, go ahead.
Yes, hello. I'm Jeff. I am playing Lutra, who is a wizard who has left her order in order to rough it with humanity and try to fight back the evils of Gloam, and will probably die horribly for trying. But yeah, looking forward to it.
Right on. T, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tealah, and I'm going to be playing Tippet Baitwell, ranger and long-time resident of Driftchapel, who's striking out to find something new.
Awesome. Lloyd.
Hello, I'm Lloyd, and I'm playing Rufus Stone. That's not his actual name. He's a dwarf, and humans are too lazy to say his full name, so he goes by Rufus. He's a old dwarf who tried to be a Dawnhammer and failed due to we'll get into it. I'm excited.
Yes, we got Lloyd to play a dwarf, everybody. It's happening. Taylor, go ahead.
Hey everybody, I'm Taylor. I'm playing Rheviadis, and she's an elf swashbuckler sailor who is probably also still too lazy to say Rufus's real name.
All right, and last but certainly not least, Aaron, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Aaron. I will be playing Oramel Spalding, Thief-Taker Oramel Spalding. My whole goal for this game, I don't think I've ever played a 5e game with guns, so I wanted to play a guy who would be like well suited to guns. He's a thief taker, which is basically like a bounty hunter, and I kind of also just wanted to create like a Bloodborne NPC, and I think I've achieved that. So when he just starts laughing weirdly and attacking all of you for no reason, that's what happened. But yeah, looking forward to the game.
Awesome. Thanks everyone again for joining me, players and viewers alike. Let's go ahead and jump into this. Many things exist outside the reality we inhabit. Many things dwell just beyond our perception, our understanding. Further, I almost hesitate to surmise, most beings living exist in this space of which we have not the slightest concept. Some things over the eons, I wager, have touched our world, whispered into our ears. I believe that we call some of these things gods. The Gloam, then, must be a thing of which we have no understanding, that we cannot see, touch, or smell, but can glimpse, somehow, with a primeval awareness, locked behind countless millennia, beyond incalculable distances. And perhaps, too, this thing we have taken to calling the Gloam, for lack of a word in any tongue to better describe it, shares more in common with the things we call gods than we yet realize. Excerpt from Ezekiel Wallow's personal journal, dated 12th of Bristle, the Queen's 356th year reigning. We open on the seaside town of Driftchapel. Blaugus street lamps flicker blue. Mist shrouds the city, just drenched in perpetual rainfall. The sea in the distance churns, dark and angry, almost black, like ink spilled from an inkwell. A figure moves down through the streets, stumbling through puddles, leaning on lampposts for support, stealing glances over their shoulder as they move. And you can see under their cloak they clutch a sea-worn flintlock pistol in shaking hands. This figure ducks into an alleyway, and the ghostly blue light of these Blaugas lamps reveals a face that, though sort of unmistakably human, also appears amphibian or fish-like almost, with these large glassy eyes and a wide sort of fish-like mouth, mottled blue-green skin that has these almost iridescent scales, sort of just sort of barely perceptible on the skin. This strange amphibian figure catches their breath as they're leaning against the wall in this alleyway, and they bring the flintlock pistol up and risk a glance over the corner down the street. This figure sees no sign of their pursuers, and so they breathe a sigh of relief, only for a hulking dark shape to sort of manifest out of the darkness of the alleyway, filling our vision. And in an instant, before this figure can react, this dark shape strikes them over the head with what appears to be the butt of a rifle, and everything goes black. It's dawn now. Still raining, but drizzling more than pouring. The fog is heavy, and though the sky is gray, there's a bit of golden sunlight sort of filtering through, bathing the city of Driftchapel. The soldiers of Strand, this region in which Driftchapel sits, have taken to the streets in blue-gray uniforms reinforced with steel plates, carrying these blast pikes, these strange weapons that are half rifle, half spear. These soldiers are moving out into the city and delivering summons from someone very important. I would like each of you in turn, and you can go in whatever order you wish. I'll ask for a volunteer to start us off here. Describe how you received the summons to Foxglove Manor here in Driftchapel. How do the soldiers approach you? How do you receive your summons and arrive at the manor house? Who would like to go first?
can jump in.
Great.
So it's early in the morning, and we first see Tippet sort of swaying in her hammock aboard her houseboat. More like a shack boat. Just enough room for a hammock, a chamber pot, and like a little like burner of some kind. Maybe she has a pet cat that's making some ruckus in the background. And she's swaying, sort of half awake in her hammock. Little like bottles filled with sand, rocks, shells are hanging from the rafters, kind of clanking together. She's a larger halfling woman, pretty tall and like muscular, but sinewy muscular. She works really hard all the time. You also see in her room kind of scattered nets, fishing equipment, couple different kinds of pairs of really worn boots. And yeah, she's sort of half awake when she would hear the knock on the door.
And the soldiers, being familiar with Tippet, simply kind of give you a knowing glance and hand you a missive, basically a sheet of paper that essentially tells you to report to Foxglove Manor regarding a matter of grave importance.
She not like bothering to get out of her hammock, just hollering at the door for them to come in. She'll kind of swing her feet down onto the ground and run her hand through sort of greasy, messy, red shoulder-length hair to kind of get it out of her face. And she'll snatch the summons out of their hands and say, "All right, I'll be there. You know I will. Now get out."
The soldiers leave you to prepare yourself for whatever is to come. Who's next?
I'll go. Rufus is standing in the awning of like a boarding house and has his like waxed hood over his head to protect even further from the rain that never ceases. He's watching like waves smash against the rocks underneath the chapel, the Driftchapel. And he's like sort of shaking his head. There's like an explosion of light as he ignites a match and lights the remaining half of like a yellowed cigarette that he's like fished out of one of his many pockets. He saved it for a rainy day. And he's just like mumbling to himself, like shaking his head, staring at like this once beautiful chapel. Gone. It's all gone. All the grandeurs wasted to live in such an age where all of the greatness is behind us. And he hears like footsteps and he'll like close his eyes and stub out like the remaining quarter of this little yellowed cigarette and tuck it back into a pocket. And he'll just like stand a little bit taller. He's a dwarf, so he doesn't stand particularly tall, but when he throws his shoulders back, he looks imposing. And he'll wait to see who it is.
And a pair of soldiers in their uniforms, these blue-gray strond uniforms, approach slowly, almost like cautiously, like, this is dwarf, you got to keep your distance. And they sort of hand you a missive, sort of holding it out at arm's length.
What's this? He like takes it and looks at them, like expecting some sort of information, in case it's like a summons he doesn't want to go to.
They both kind of exchange glances, and one of them says, "Work, paid work."
That'll have to do.
Who's next?
I can go. So we move to the outskirts of town, where we will see Lutra returning from beyond. Clearly, she's been up for a moment already, this early into the day, and she'll sit down amidst the rain. And even though the rain is coming down at a fairly moderate pace, she'll like reach her hand down towards the ground where like a fire will sprout in a flash, seemingly unaffected by the downpour of the water. Other than like the strange arcane purple glint in her eyes, she's like the epitome of practicality. Like a forest green cloak blocks out the rain, and like very simple minimalist like leather and cloth armor beneath that, and very little else. And she's got like her cloak sort of held out in front of her with like a piece of paper that she's kind of scanning with her eyes before she'll like hear footsteps, like fold the paper and stuff it like quickly into the cloak before looking up.
Like the others, you see a pair of strong soldiers hefting these strange sort of pronged weapons, these blast pikes, and one of them says, "Urgent summons from the baroness," and they hand you this missive.
And she'll like use the rifle like a walking stick to push herself up off the ground before like taking the letter. I'm just nodding. You know I'll be there. Sorry you had to come all this way.
They kind of nod, not saying anything, but sort of acknowledging, like, yeah, it was a bit of a walk. And they both head back to town. Who's next?
So, somewhere between the whatever passes for a court of law in this city and the bay, there is an alleyway that kind of comes to a dead end. And at the dead end, there is a tavern by the name of the Razor Clam. And upon entering in, you see that there are an assortment of patrons. I mean, there are people there that are drinking and enjoying the usual entertainments of a tavern. But there are also, there's fishing line all along the tops of the rafters and everything like that. And from the fishing line, like all of these writs with crude illustrations are on them, and you can tell that these are like bounties as you get closer to them. And people are, and then there also seems to be trophies everywhere of perhaps the different gains of these different thief takers that have obviously populated this place. And there's a lot of shop talk going around, people who are making deals, and also a lot of money is flowing, money that has been bounties that have just been made, and sort of around this hubbub and chaos and sort of conviviality between people who share a similar life path. There's sort of like a bit of a bleak calm in the center of one of the tables, where there are several card players, and one of them is this very wiry, tall human man, white hair. He has this, though there is one place where there's like a patch of hair missing on his right side, and there's like these little perforations and that make sort of like a semicircle, or not a semicircle, that make an oval where that little patch of hair is missing, though he kind of tries to comb over it a little bit. And he is wearing a long jacket and the usual stylings of the people of Driftchapel. and there is a dourness about him, and he is not focused on any of the business going around him at all. He's just focused on the card game.
There's a sort of a folded sheath of parchment that's just sort of dropped in the middle of the table on top of these cards. And I imagine that not just Oramel, but everyone sitting at this table would just kind of look up at the at this soldier who has entered this somewhat sacred space and sullied it with his presence. And he'll just look at you, Oramel, like incline his head towards the missive and just like turn and leave, try to get out as quickly as possible.
And I think that like there'd be a bunch of people like once they realize the livery of these folks and like this is an opportunity for maybe something big, a really good job. There might be like a younger thief taker at the table who like reaches out to get it, and then there's like the cock of a gun, and he just reaches over with the tip of the gun and he just drags the paper over towards him, and just kind of looks at it, and there is no change in the expression on his face, but there's a slight twitch of an eyebrow.
Who's next?
In contrast to the calmness at the card table, in a tavern near the docks, you find Rheviadis, and it is loud. And she's in the midst of a drinking contest that is never just a drinking contest. She races a human man to the bottom of the glass, picks up a dagger, and chucks it towards the wall. 29! She's shouting, and there's money being changed hands. 34? You got it in you? And if there are any others in the room, she doesn't notice. She doesn't care. She's on shore leave.
There's this soldier who sort of comes up short as a dagger like sinks into the wall and sort of vibrates there in the wood of the wall. And the soldier kind of looks around and is holding this paper and says, looking for Rheviadis? Rheviadis?
No. I got 2 more days.
I've been told to deliver this to you. It's a job, paid work from the baroness.
Is it a baroness already? Ah, fuck, it was a baron like 20 years ago. Was it 40? Ah, fine, whatever. Let me see that.
Here. And
Yeah,
he
thanks.
books it out of the tavern.
Michele is sleeping in a mountain cave in Reckhart. And she wakes with a fright and looks up into the cave, curious as to what she had heard. She crawls through a crawl space, and darkness swallows her. She hears a slice, a branch, off a blighted holly in the family orchard. Her mother is there, and she seems very angry with her, but she can't remember why. A tall blonde boy runs by. The orchard rows shift, transition into undrowned reefs. Frigid winds and waves batter a shore of shells and jagged rocks. She's skipping across the coral towards a toppled lighthouse in the distance, laughing with that same tall boy just ahead of her. He turns in the distance, there his silhouette is, and he motions her forward. The toppled lighthouse then transforms into a standing one, full, one that she'd recognize anywhere, even if she'd lived to be 500 years. She enters through its front door. The inside is much larger than it should be, but she can't quite place the details. They're a blur of emotion, an interwebbed network of colors. Foxglove Manor, though. She knows these colors. She'd been there once before. It's difficult to distinguish the voices, though. The ends of the phrases and sentences meld with the beginnings of the others. The faces, though, she can see the faces for the most part. A dwarf, grim-looking, disgusting cigarette. She smells it. A halfling on the taller side, swinging in a hammock. A cat, bottles of sand and shells, worn boots. A figure in a storm, sitting. Forest green cloak. Can't quite see. Ah, a tall one. Shock white hair. A sea of money passed like tides between greedy, sweaty shores, but he stands alone. The last one, a flash of a blade, a blur, too fast to see. But then, of course, the baroness. She can't quite grasp any of the words. They're drowned out under some filter, and then she says, "It's time." Michele wakes fearfully. She scrambles. The tent, the rain pouring outside. She grasps her arm, looks at the tattoo there. She feels better. She smiles. She laughs. She beats the ground around her. She looks down her chest at this brown spider with a bulbous abdomen and long, stretching limbs. It touches her lip. She smiles. "I know, Oscar. I'm excited to go too."
The 6 of you, are there 6 of you? 6 of you are now all standing in the Foxglove Manor in this kind of antechamber that leads deeper into the house. The manor itself is this U-shaped structure with a beautiful central courtyard that's fenced in wrought iron. Those of you native to Driftchapel or who have been here for a long enough time know that this manor house was abandoned for nearly a century before the Baroness Yesenia Foxglove took possession of the building, or so the rumors go. The house is dark, flanked by high hedges, and kind of perched atop this hill that overlooks the rest of Driftchapel. It's sort of this, it's this overlook. Not the highest point in the city, but maybe the second or third highest. There are other soldiers here in those same blue-gray uniforms carrying the blast pikes. And the 6 of you are all assembled in this room. There are chairs to sit in, but for the most part, you've just been told to wait. The Baroness will be with you shortly. All of you have likely arrived at different times, but you're all here now is the important part. You have a few moments before you are let in to see the Baroness if there's anything you'd like to say or do before you do so.
What sort of room are we in again?
It's sort of like it's like a waiting room. There's like some shelves with like books and stuff. Some like couches that are sort of pushed up along the wall. It's sort of like a long rectangular room with doors on each wall, sort of leading into other places of the manor house. So you've previously been led through a few hallways into the manor itself before you were left sort of in this waiting room.
Okay.
Tippet strolled in. What time was there a time we were supposed to be there? It
Yeah, it was
doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter, but it was probably like midday. It's like midday.
So I strolled in at least 15, 20 minutes after the time we were asked to be there, and just walk in and say, some other suckers, all right, and just plop down in a chair and start like fiddling with some string or something.
Rufus would have been there 35 minutes early, and it's probably been standing in the same place, unmoving. He has like a prayer bead, and he's just going sort of through it again and again in like an infinite loop, quietly murmuring to himself. He would like do a polite nod to like anyone who entered, but he's not over much for starting conversations.
Michele is laying on the floor of this place, looking at the ceiling and closing her eyes and opening them and closing them and opening them. And you can hear her mumblings, and she's talking to this other spider that's nearby. And she says that if she times it right, she can surprise herself into thinking the ceiling's as high as the sky. And she looks over, and there's a black spider with like purple specks on it, and it's crawling down to reach towards someone's shoulder. It's just like maybe on a perch nearby, and it's just kind of like reaching, trying to grab onto them. I don't know if it's Rufus or someone else who wants to take that on. They're just so close to grabbing your shoulder.
A spider. No, sorry. Go ahead.
You go.
But the spider is close to grabbing our shoulder.
Yep, your shoulder. Hold
yeah.
on.
If
Is
there
it
is
Oramel?
if there is just a random creature, animal that is going for my shoulder, I will treat it with contempt, and I would not have any. He is lost in his pipe. He sees it, and he will go to smack it. You can tell that is his intent.
Does he kill it, or does he just scare it away?
Yeah, I mean, unless he is stopped, he will. You know what? Actually, he will trap it. I think that it gets onto his shoulder. Oramel, you can see that Oramel knows this place. He might have been here a few times, and he goes to like a cabinet somewhere where there is where he knows like there is a servant that keeps like booze here, and he finds a glass, and he's like able to capture the thing in the glass. And he just he very calmly like moves it aside and like keeps it trapped on the table, on like a table.
And it, when you look at Michele at any point in time, she's always got spiders on her. She's always holding a spider or letting it crawl on her arms or hands. Sometimes there are a lot of them. Sometimes they perch very close to her when they're trying to stay warm. She has a very good relationship with these creatures, and she sees you with the glass, and she goes over and says, "Oscar, thank you. Wait, did you hurt him?" And she checks and sees that no, it's that Oscar is perfectly fine, and the spiders all crawl up, and Oscar crawls up near her neck, and they're all on her shoulder, and their eyes are all on you. And she says to you, "They're watching you." And if you're insightful about it, you firmly believe that she feels she is doing you a favor, and this is like a repayment for being so kind to Oscar.
Usually live retrievals cost double.
They'll watch you twice.
It's always been my policy. And his pipe goes out, and he realizes he'll go up to Rufus Do you have a light?
He like nods, and there's like this shake of like a huge beard and like the remaining wispy hairs, and he'll begin the laborious process of patting down pockets until he like finds the correct one. He'll pull out this like little box. It's actually really finely made, like a little metal box. It doesn't rattle when he rattles it, and he seems quite pleased with that. And then he'll like press a small button, and it'll like open a little gear mechanism. He'll present you this like fine little matchbox.
Very nice. And he'll take one. He'll light his pipe. He shows he's got out his like tobacco pouch and all this stuff. He kind of makes a gesture to you as like, if you need any tobacco, if you need your pipe filled or anything like that, carry a pipe.
Yeah, he thinks it's he says it's already a transaction.
Yeah.
He has given you a match and he will get something in return. So he'll sort of like, as you're sort of offering, he'll already have his like grubby little fingers in the tobacco pouch, and he'll take like, you think a carefully like chosen amount of tobacco that he thinks is like an equitable amount for what he's provided you. He'll like pull it out. It's like less than a cigarette's worth. He'll like pull it out and then place it into like, weirdly there's like a little side part of this matchbox. He'll like pull that out and you'll see like bits of dried tobacco in there. He'll like put it in and like slide it back shut and then close the whole contraption.
Oramel kind of looks around the room, bemused by these two interactions, and he just kind of says, I see that this is a group that appreciates commerce.
Certainly got quite the cast of characters around here. Wonder what it's all for.
Whatever it is, it's not simple. I can tell you that.
I knew it would come to me. Rukarl Thormar Arkarza Karum. You'll forget my accent. Man, that's been 80 years.
Rufus will like look in the direction and sort of like
You aged.
Yes, it's been a while. Greetings. Hello.
I thought you were one of the other ones, but I knew I would come. Your name would come to me. I knew I'd get it. It's been bugging me whole time.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too. And this bunch of weirdos, but what the hell?
How did you make out after the last thing?
Hadn't sunk yet.
And the poison?
I think it only cost me about 20 years.
A fair trade.
Yeah. Worth it, man. Worth it.
It's about this time that all of you kind of hear like a clamor from the other side of this far door leading to the north. You hear like running footsteps, and it's clear that it's like bare feet, and you hear like giggling, like laughing, and then the door just like flies open, and 5 or 6 half-dressed just young, beautiful people of myriad gender and ancestry just running through the room, like clutching their clothes to them. And they just run through the room like you all aren't there and disappear through the far door, which closes. And not reacting to any of this, the soldier standing next to the door nods to the 6 of you and says, right, she'll see you now.
I move with purpose.
We gotta go through this door, not that one.
This one here, yeah, to the baroness. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a harumph from Rufus as he like realizes he's been waiting out here so the baroness could like get on with some nasty human business. Like he's not going to live forever, and so he'll like return to his perpetual bad mood.
Michele gives a disgusting whiff as she passes Rufus and smells the smoke and kind of wafts it away from her as she walks past and towards the door.
Tippet will haul herself up out of the chair and go, ugh, all right, let's get it over with.
Yeah, Lutra will follow in like an oddly like cheery mood given the crowd and the circumstances. Like there's something about this group of who knows what that appeals to her somehow.
The six of you are led through this door and down another short hallway, through a second door, and finally into this large, lavish sitting room. There's furniture everywhere. There's a large bed against the far wall, this like huge 4-poster bed. It's like whatever the Victorian equivalent of like a California king is, just this massive bed. And all the sheets and pillows are kind of tousled and thrown to one side. There's a roaring hearth along one wall that is making it a little too warm in here, but lending this sort of pleasant flickering glow to the room. Every surface is covered in silks and pillows and plates of like fruit and food. And in the center of the room, kind of sprawled across this fainting couch, wearing a robe that is sheer and doesn't leave a whole lot to the imagination, is this middle-aged human woman with red hair that is streaked with gray, and she's sipping this vivid green liquor from this tiny little stemmed glass, and in the other hand she has this hose that is leading to this sort of hookah-like contraption in the center of this sitting area, and she's taking a long draw on this hookah, and as the six of you enter, she kind of like just blows the smoke out. And she just kind of like wordlessly gestures to the furniture around her, like, you all can pick a place to sit.
Do I know if this person is actually nobility or if they're just rich?
She is actually nobility. She's one of the 5 regents, so above any lordships. She is in charge of Strand, and you've been around long enough, Rufus, to know that she is not. She married into the barony. She's from outside the family. Her husband and many other male members of the family died over the course of about a year, and she then took over, and it's just like sort of a common like known secret that she just had everyone murdered and took over.
In that case, then he'll sit.
Still mixing business with pleasure, I see, milady.
I don't see any difference, Oramel. Pleasure to see you again.
I'm just glad you bothered to put clothes on this time.
You as well, Tippet.
You'll pardon me if I'll. Well, I had to assume that it was important, seeing as you and your men have known, and I've been out of the business for 13 months now.
I'm well aware, Oramel, and I know that many of you are not in the line of work in which you originate. fisher people that don't do much fishing anymore, dawn hammers that don't hammer any dawns, mercenaries that don't do any mercenary work, but the 6 of you have something in common, and that is all of you have done something in the service to Driftchapel. And her eyes kind of stray to you, Michele, and she says, "You I don't know. Who are you?"
Michele is standing a little farther away from the smoke. She's standing nearer an open window, the sea breeze blowing through. She says, "You won't believe me if I told you." And she looks over and smiles. And she like treadmills a spider a little bit.
A hand goes under my coat.
Are you telling me this little fucking weirdo isn't with you?
I sent 5 summons, not 6.
She steps forward quickly and she says, "I saw you all in a dream."
Excuse me?
I usually appear in nightmares.
She laughs. That just gets her. That's hilarious to her. "Can I come with you? I won't get in the way. I'm
Yes.
very helpful." She looks at Rufus. She's surprised. Spiders kind of gaze over at you, away from.
A dream. You dreamt of us.
A dream? I did. Here.
A sign.
Of what?
A plan, a design. You must be with us.
Great.
You know, some of the people that I've been around can see the future too. She'll say, like, as if like none of this has surprised her, that you've like seen us in a dream. Like it's just like, oh yeah, that happens sometimes.
One
And
of
if it's
the
us that you saw, then it's, as Rufus says, meant to be.
She's actually kind of disappointed that so many people believe her and aren't surprised. Just for a moment, she just... Okay.
Oh, I think it's nuts, but he's real superstitious, and you can get around water. You don't mess with superstitions of people.
Superstition, it is faith. We've spoken on this before. I'll ask you not to bring it up again.
I feel like
You can ask.
Oramel would look at Tippet, who I'm sensing is also like a little bit dismayed by this more than everybody else. Yeah.
Tippet has this point. She has found another chair to plop down in, and you see her just kind of shaking her head. And I'll look at Yesenia and say, "Look, I don't know what the hell's going on with the spiders and everything, but look, I don't really care who's on this band. Are we going to get paid or not?"
the Baroness
Probably
speaks
less than
up.
if there's 6 of us.
Yeah, yes. Everyone will be paid. Now, one of the soldiers sort of in the room steps forward and says, "My lady, I'm sorry. I can get her out of here if you want." And the Baroness says, "I want to see how this plays out."
Famous last words.
Can I use some type of perception, or I want to like really try and scope out what the hell's going on with Michele?
Yeah, if you want to make an insight check, and Michele, if you're trying to hide anything, you can roll against it, or I could just set a static DC.
She's not trying to hide anything.
Okay, go ahead and roll.
Much to all of our dismay.
All right, you were muted, but I heard you through the wall say 11.
We're breaking the illusion.
I heard 7.
11.
actually.
11!
Well, it didn't carry as well to New Mexico, so.
Yeah. It's hard to get a read on this person. I will say this. You've lived in Driftchapel your whole life, Tippet, and you've known a lot of people who are touched, is a nice way to say it. You've known a lot of people who are eccentric, who have seen things that has forever changed the way that they view the world and themselves. But there is something genuine about this person that is setting her apart. There's something not right also, but there's also like a genuine sort of feeling that you get.
It's innocently not right.
Innocently, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, honestly, the spider thing to Tippet is kind of a perk, not a bad thing.
I was gonna ask if you had a cat and maybe they were just over like playing together or something.
Yeah. So the cat's not with me. I was making a joke about my IRL cat being a loud asshole. So,
but they're very friendly, and
he's
if
such
you
a
let them,
sweetheart, but
they'll crawl on your hands and
Yeah.
hang out with you and be very nice.
So, look, it's not the spiders that give me pause. It's honestly just having to have more hassle on this trip. I just want to go and do the job and get back. I don't even really want to be here talking with you, no offense, ma'am. But I mean, the nobility, it's all bullshit. No offense, ma'am. But I mean, she's just exhausted by the situation.
I understand your hesitance. I understand any withholdings you might have about walking in here and talking to me about whatever it is we're going to talk about. So I'd say for now, let's go with the team we have and talk about a proposition that I have for all of you. Is that okay with everybody?
Mind if I smoke?
She takes a drag on the hookah. I don't.
Thank you. I'll reach in and acquire the box and begin the unfolding.
She actually stands up and sort of paces around. She gets up and ties her robe, sort of covering up a little bit better, but not really making an effort to as well. And she'll kind of stroll around the room as she's speaking. The job I have for you is, well, it's one that is important to my territory, to Strand, to Driftchapel. But I'd wager to say that it has much more importance than that. I'd wager to say that this is, this is something of global significance, if you catch my meaning. The tides are changing, the winds are shifting, and I'd like Strand to be at the forefront of these things, and, speaking plainly, speaking honestly, I don't have much love for the crown, and, well, I'd like to see Strand survive the crown, if you catch my meaning. Which is why I would like the the 6 of you to find a lighthouse that we misplaced about 40 years ago.
Oh, fuck off.
Now, just wait and listen. Even if you don't know his work, you likely know the name Wallow. He was, at one time, the foremost expert on the Gloam. He established a lab of sorts in a far-flung lighthouse a few days from here. Last Light, it was called. Last Light became a bastion for research on the Gloam before it encroached on our territories. And a lot of the things we know about the Gloam come from Ezekiel Wallow. But you also likely know that Ezekiel Wallow disappeared about 40 years ago, and he took the lighthouse and everything and everyone inside of it with him. Now, the Ordisterium has long lamented the loss of their star pupil. A few days ago, a merchant vessel by the name Magdalena sighted a beacon 3 days from here. That far out, it could only be last light. And I don't think I need to tell you how strange it is that it's there. Last light was lost decades ago, swallowed by the Gloam. We've searched for it. Ordisterium has sent a dozen expeditions out to look for it, and no sign.
Yeah, no shit, and they don't really come back much either.
No, they do not. The Magdalena did, though, and brought word of this. If I know about it, then the Ordisterium knows about it, which means the Crown knows about it, which means Thurlin knows about it. The Count will likely be sending representatives of his own. The Ordisterium will likely be sending representatives of their own. Let me be clear. It is imperative that we reach it first. If we can find Last Light, if we can find what was lost, well, we'll have the biggest bargaining chip in the 5 Dominions.
So the pay will be significant.
The pay will be significant, yes. You will never want for work again. Any of you. Even those who weren't invited. She looks at Michele. No offense.
There will be a contract and a definite figure.
Everything above board. Standard contract, agreed upon price, down payment up front. I do business the way I like to do business. Oramel and Tippet can vouch for that.
I've never been cheated by you yet.
No, you've never left me hanging.
Me neither.
But
Now, it's a long trip, dangerous trip, which is why I have asked you here, and she looks to Rheviadis. Your ship. She's a fine vessel, what I'm told.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, Tippet here is good with boats, but, well, she's got the little steam paddlers. Boats designed for the bay and the coast. You're going into the open ocean. You'll want a sailing vessel.
All right. If we can agree on price. I don't sail without my crew. You're going to have to pay all of them, too. Probably triple their normal rate because this is just absolutely insane.
Money is no object.
Good, because you're going to need a hell of a lot of it to convince them.
That shouldn't be a problem.
When do we leave?
As soon as you're ready. There is a, there's a bit of a snag. And I like to keep my business above board, as I said, and in that vein, I want to be completely open and honest with all of you. The crew of the Magdalena, upon returning, there were 7 of them. 6 came back. 5 of them are gone. Either dead or disappeared in the last week. And the sole survivor, the helmsman, a man by the name of Reed, well, he disappeared yesterday, last night, to be exact, and I have reason to believe that representatives of Thurland, my rival to the south, the Count, I think they snagged him off the streets of Driftchapel. And, well, if you have any hope of finding Last Light, you're going to need someone who's been there before.
When you say they saw it 3 days out, how close?
That I don't know.
You didn't get a record? You didn't take a statement? Maps? Charts?
We were in the process of trying to do that when the captain scuttled the Magdalena in Trawler's Bay.
Well,
So before we can even set sail for this fairy tale nightmare, we have to find a man first.
You do. Which is part of the reason I've asked you here, Oramel.
Huh. All right. Should be easy enough. What was the band's name?
Reed. He
Reed,
goes by
that's right.
Reed.
Reed.
I don't know anything about him beyond that.
Reed, Magdalena. Fishy fellow, right?
That I don't know.
The sailors of Driftchapel tend to stay in their circles. Shouldn't be hard to find who's missing somebody and who knows what. All right. I'm ready.
Quick perusal of the contract, and I'll be on my way.
There are a handful of folks I can ask around by the docks. Ask her about the name Reed. See if anyone knows anything.
I think between the 6 of you, you shouldn't have much of an issue finding him. Now, if he is held by soldiers of Thurland, I give you leeway to make the decision on how you deal with that. Personally, I have no love for the Count or any of his followers. There's no consequence to me if they get in the way. Now, if the Ordisterium is sending anyone, that could throw a wrench in the works as well. But I trust y'all to do what needs to be done. So, I'll have the contracts drawn up, and I'll let you all do what you do best. The wreckage of the Magdalena is still sitting at the bottom of Trawler's Bay. There might be some clues there, hints as to what they found, where Reed might be, but you'd likely just as soon find him if you asked around. I leave the decisions up to you. This thing that I'm asking you all to do is... it's dangerous. now. Unless anyone has any questions, let's drop some contracts, shall we? A few more people sort of bustle into the room. Contracts are presented to each of you. The pay is substantial. I won't give an exact figure, but it's certainly more than you've ever been paid for a single job, and likely enough to keep you well taken care of for most of your life, if not the remainder of your life. And for you, Rheviadis, you see that your crew is well taken care of as well, well compensated. There's sort of a clause in your contract that makes it so that however many crew members you have on board, they will receive up to this amount upon completion of the job.
Rufus will make a show of reading the whole thing, and will like note tiny little clause here and there, like change a little word here or there, really just because it's like fun for him. It's like a classic part of being a dwarf. You enjoy this sort of legal nonsense. And so he'll go through and change a little bit here and there, but he's broadly happy with it. And he'll do the same for anyone else who asks eagerly. We'll look at their contracts too.
Yeah, Michelle's kind of cheating off of you, almost like it's a test, looking at where your marks are, and then you see her and she hands you the contract, and she stands a little closer to you as you fill it out.
See here, there's a clause about death and about the payment that would, where that would go in the event of your death.
Oh, wouldn't that be fun? What would happen? What would come next?
Oh, that is a question that has plagued all living things, thinking for the length of existence.
Oh, kid, do not get him started.
Get him started with what?
Change this here, and he'll like go over and change a little bit about, because I guess he would ask about like, does Michele have any next of kin that the money would go to and that sort of thing.
Yes, Oscar. Thank you.
I see. And in the event that Oscar does not make it, this is the spider, yes?
They're all Oscar.
I see.
Yeah. And he's a friend. He's a friend of mine.
Very good. He'll write in like that the portion of Michelle's trust will go to the reservation of the area in which she lives, so that part of the is not built on top of or whatever. He'll like change that in there.
Get him started on what?
Literally anything to do with death or piety or sin or superstition.
It has always baffled me that one so long lived would not ask any questions of what lies beyond.
I did that like 400 years ago.
And what conclusion did you come to? Drinking games?
Yeah.
So, Oramel, I mean, you probably all know, basically what his job is, and even if you don't know who he is specifically or his reputation, but, as a thief taker, contracts are kind of a big deal in like the whole job. But you notice that he gives a very perfunctory glance to everything and like basically just flips right to the signature part and just scratches his name out very quickly, throws the pen on the table, and I think once he sees that like everybody has like signed and is ready to go, he just says, well, I hope you've all made your arrangements. You've all just signed your death warrants.
The contracts are all signed. The death warrants are all signed. And the six of you sort of leave the baroness's home, and on your way out, you would see that the next person coming in to speak to her is this woman wearing these heavy robes that are just laden with like bits and trinkets, various weird glowing objects. And she wears this sort of lace veil over most of her face, obscuring her features, and she leans on this metal staff that has a like gas flame at its top. There's sort of this gas flame just burning on top of this staff, and all of you would likely recognize an Ortist when you saw one, and specifically in Driftchapel, you would recognize Agnes Wood. She's the only Ortist living here in Driftchapel, and she just like looks at each of you in turn as you're walking out before she then walks into the room and the door closes behind her.
This is the most dangerous type of job.
Well, what makes you say that?
It's politics.
Well, I agree on that.
Listen, you all have your reasons for being here, I'm sure. And I don't doubt that I could find this Reed or what remains of him before the day's out by myself. But we're all contractually obligated to work with each other. So I'm not going to be difficult about the prospect of working as a team. It rarely works out well for me, but here we are. This is what I suggest. We are in a politically terrible situation. We are not only working in the realm of a criminal element, but potentially dealing with foreign agents from powerful organizations. I suggest discretion, but honestly, I don't put much of a chance on us coming back from the sea. So whatever we have to do to start sailing as quickly as possible, I'm all for it.
How long before you can get your crew together, Captain?
I'll show them the figures and they'll be ship shape in 2 days tops. We'll have to get supplies. But...
It will need to be sooner.
Come on, Rocky. You're always in a hurry.
Once we deal with whoever has dealt with Reed, and once we come across their path, it'll be inconvenient for us to stay here.
We need to be ready to leave as soon as we have him. If you need me to encourage your crew to move quickly, I'm happy to do so.
I got it. Thanks. All right, we'll be ready.
I don't have quite the same level of experience when it comes to finding people as you do, but tend to have a pretty good intuition for things. If you need a second pair of eyes, I'm happy to lend them.
Like I said, I'm not going to disparage help, especially if it gets us moving. Let's just try not to get into each other's way.
I suggest we head down to the docks, and we can always use the fishing guild house to kind of center our operations. Might be able to pull some strings to help get your crew outfitted a little faster there too.
Oh, faster's better. And Oramel, was it? Yeah, Oramel. You're bringing him back to the ship, right?
Reed?
Yeah.
If there's anything to bring back, I don't suppose there will be.
Come on, man. You gotta give me something. I can't chart a course just based on the Magdalena's previous route. I mean,
Well,
who knows where they swerved to avoid God knows what's in the water.
Well, if he is not alive, then I will make sure to find out what I can from whoever got the information they wanted from him.
Yeah, sure, bring them back too. We'll make a chart.
You don't need to worry about me. I'm fine with this thing. He kind of shows his flintlock.
No, I'm not worried about you. I want to make sure you don't anybody who has the information we need.
That's what I'm saying, is that I'm handy with this, but I don't use it unless I need it.
All right, fair enough.
So, Tippet, I suppose you'll be invaluable with your, well, both you and our captain here, be invaluable with your ties to the shipping and sailing sort around Driftchapel. So your suggestion seems like a good one.
It seems like as good a place to start as any, and we can kind of kill two birds with one stone. It's a good place to ask around for information too.
And it's decided. Let's go.
So I will lead the group down to the docks.
All right. You all head down to the docks, and while you're down there, is it Rheviadis? Is that how you pronounce it?
Close enough. We'll go with
it. Okay, cool. It's just such a cool name, and I'm just making sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. You're able to kind of, like, while you're down there, you're sort of able to, you know, get in touch whoever it would be, your first mate or whatever, to try it, like, get the process started. And you all head to this this guild hall, this fishing guild hall, and, like, what does it look like, T? What is it like? What does the guild hall, what do you see as you walk into this place?
So it's a bait shop in the bottom. It's my family's bait shop. And then you walk up these switchback stairs to kind of a loft with just a big table, stools around it, and like kind of set up to have a little like wet bar. So you could have like a party there if you wanted to, but it's
it's an event space.
Yeah, it's just like very rustic wood bait shop. Nets and everything. There's a briny, fishy smell to it. It's a bait shop.
Cool. So you all are able to like set up shop in here, and you have access to the upstairs loft where you can kind of leave your stuff and make any sort of plans you want to make. From here, where does everyone want to go? Who do you want to talk to? What sort of leads do you want to get after?
For me, I'm just a big boy that will like stand in the way, and so I don't have a lot of like skills in finding people. So if I need to sit on the ship, make sure no one tampers with it, I can do that. Or if you want me with you, Thief-Taker, I can sort of harumph behind you.
Yeah, Lutra will gladly follow in Oramel's lead. She doesn't have like experience with tracking people, but she's also very good at it, which doesn't sound like it makes sense, but it does. And she would actually tell you as well, like if we can just find anything that he's owned, like any possessions of his, like I might be able to use that to help track him as well.
There was also the matter of we were told that the remains of the wreck of the Magdalena are also available to us.
Somewhat available to you in that they exist somewhere at the bottom of Trawler's Bay.
Okay.
What Yesenia told you is that the captain scuttled their own ship, and it is now sitting at the bottom of the bay. So you can go out there and dive down and find what you can, but that's up to you.
Well, if this comes up in conversation, I might point out that are there any scavengers or anyone I know who goes out and drags dredges for shipwrecks that I might be able to talk to? Maybe they picked something up from the Magdalena.
Yeah, there are probably people that go out and trawl for like shipwrecks and stuff and grab stuff out of the bay. So you likely have people that you know who do that sort of thing that you could inquire.
Yeah, I think beyond that, the first inquiry I would make would also be asking around the sort of the sailors and the fishers, anybody who would know Reed. The first thing I want to be pointed out to is where he lived.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. With all that, go ahead.
So one more thing that I'm. So Rheviadis is going to be, at some point, talking to other ships that have sailed a similar route to Magdalena, people that were coming in and out about the same time. Did they see the Magdalena? Did they see anything else? And what course the Magdalena was supposed to take? So that at the very least we have a starting point if we can't find anybody alive.
Okay, great. All right. I've got all this that I need to come up with answers for. So let's take a quick break. We're coming up on our time here. We've got about 40 minutes left before I'm going to give us our hard stop. But let's take a quick break. I'll compose some answers and we'll wrap up the session. So stick around, everybody. We'll be right back. And we'll see you in a little bit. All right, and everyone's where they're supposed to be. I did it! Woohoo! Hey, everybody, we're back. And right before we left, the party decided on some leads that they were going to follow. And, well, I've rolled some dice, and I've consulted the bones, and I now have that information that I will happily give to you. So, Tippet, you reach out to some of your contacts among the local scavengers, the people who go out onto the bay and just grab stuff out of old shipwrecks and stuff. True to what you thought, the shipwreck has already been scavenged a couple times over by a couple of different crews. One of the crews, they have like this this diving suit, and it's one of those like old-timey diving suits with like the helmet with the ports on the side and stuff. And so they got in there and they really went through the wreck looking at everything. The information that you find out from these folks, and you might have to toss some coins their way in order to find this out, but it looked like the captain blew a hole in the ship from the inside to get it to sink. They found the captain on board when they opened up his quarters. They said he was floating in there, bloated and glassy-eyed, and with a look on his face like he had seen his own ghost, is what the person described it as. They didn't find much in the way of anything super of note, but they do mention to you that they managed to scavenge some dry powder that had been sealed in these sort of pitch-sealed barrels, shot for the cannons. And they mentioned to you that the cannons had recently been fired. They could tell that the cannons had been fired like in the last couple of days before it was scuttled in the bay. Beyond that, they tell you that there wasn't much to go on. Reed, you find out, Oramel, does not live in Driftchapel. He's not from Driftchapel. He tends to keep to himself. And he actually lived aboard the Magdalena, obviously, before it was scuttled. But in pursuing these leads, you find out that he was sighted in town in the last 2 days. And you also find out that people have seen soldiers of Thurland in Driftchapel. Not conspicuously, but in a few taverns and alleyways, they've spotted people that are very obviously, they have like fur-lined uniforms. They're from a cold region of the Five Dominions, and they sort of stick out in their uniforms. But you do find out that the captain of the Magdalena, a man by the name of Alden Price, did live in Driftchapel, and he lives just a few blocks from the guild house that you all are sort of headquartered in at the moment.
Excellent. Is there any other information you need to dole out?
I think that's it.
Okay. Whoever's on hand, I think we're all together. Eventually, I relate all of this to my companions, and I say,
Well, I suppose if Reed didn't live here, and if other people have seen Thurland soldiers, it's possible that, and well, also if he saw that so many of his friends were disappearing, probably would look for someplace safe. The captain had a home not far from here. Even if we go there and fail to find anything about Reed, it will at least give us some information. So it might be that's a good point. Oh yeah, okay. So
Sorry, audience. I was reading some chat. As Oramel's not crazy. He's saying, so if we go to the captain's house, we might be able to find information, and it is possibly a place that the helmsman would go in a time of need.
Baroness mentioned some other count had an interest. Do we know if they're stationed here?
Yes. Oh, well, we know that there are soldiers about. So, if anyone's responsible, it's probably them. So be prepared for a fight.
So it sounds like y'all want to go check out the captain's house?
I'm down for it.
Sounds good.
Until I can find any kind of solid physical lead, so I can know where to even track from. So yeah.
Yeah. So you all head to where you know the captain to have lived based on the information drummed up by Oramel and Tippet. It's like a really small but comfortable little hovel. It's sort of on the docks, but a little deeper into Driftchapel than, right on the edge of the water. And when you get there, it's sort of like in this little, almost like cul-de-sac. It's sort of like on a dead-end little road. And as you approach, whoever's sort of leading, you would probably notice that the door of the shack is open. It's like hanging ajar on its hinges. And the latch is broken. It looks like someone busted the door in.
I silently draw everyone's attention towards that, if anybody hasn't. And Oramel will be very, very intense that everybody begins to stops and thinks before we approach. And he draws his flintlock.
Yeah, Rufus will draw a blast pike, and don his shield. It's like inscribed all over with these tiny little runes, like microscopic almost. And he'll hold that and then put the blast pike over his shoulder, and he'll look to the Thief-Taker. He knows what he's doing. He's just here to make sure he doesn't get killed.
Following their lead, Tippet will get her longbow ready, knock an arrow, and kind of find a little corner or even a doorway to kind of crouch in and keep an eye on the doorway to the place.
Cool.
We cut across a road to Michele, who's kind of hiding behind a low wall, just peering at all of you as you are going in the dangerous place.
I'll probably be approaching, but just so I know, what's Lutra and Rheviadis, where y'all posted at, just so I have an idea.
Lutra would basically be ready to be backup. She'll basically follow in behind you, so that if there is anything, you'll have a sort of line of defense. But she's following your lead, but is going with you, not hiding out somewhere.
Okay.
Rheviadis is near Tippet. She's twirling at the moment 2 different throwing daggers.
Okay. So this shack, does it look like this? Do I have a sense that this door is the only way in and out?
Yeah, there is you imagine that if there is a back door, you can kind of skirt along. There's not much room between the two buildings, and on one side it's actually connected to another building, but there is you could potentially squeeze through to see if there's like a back door. As you do approach a little closer to the shack, go ahead and give me a perception roll if you would, please, Aaron.
Yeah, and also be moving stealthily as well.
Yes, noted.
So my perception was a 23.
Okay, and go ahead and give me a stealth roll as well.
And my stealth was an 18.
Okay. As you approach the shack, you over the underlying stench of brine and mildew that just all of Driftchapel smells like. You definitely smell this sickly sweet decomp smell as you get close. You also smell powder, recently flashed powder. And there's another smell that you can't quite place that's sort of this it's very sharp and acrid. You can't quite place it.
Okay. Is that, I get a sense that's coming from the shack?
Yeah,
itself.
from the shack, yeah. And
Yeah.
you don't hear anything inside the shack, and you don't through this grimy sort of bottle glass window that's flanking the door, you don't see any light wavering from the inside either. It doesn't appear that there's any movement coming from inside.
Okay. Then I move towards that door then, and try to peek in before moving in earnest.
You push the door open. It's hanging on one hinge, and the latch is indeed broken. The house itself is incredibly small. There's just a couple of rooms that are separated by a small doorway, and there's a sort of an alcove with a hammock in it that's sort of a bedroom, for lack of a better phrase. It's cluttered, and you immediately get the sense that this is a place that is not lived in very much. It's just a place to sort of drop your stuff when you're not on a boat. A lot of houses in Driftchapel are like that. But there are two things that you notice immediately that are likely the source of the smells. The first is a body. The uniform you immediately note is Thurland colors. There's sort of this ice blue color with this gold. And there's fur lining the collar and the cuffs of the uniform. No metal. You know that the Thurland troops don't wear any metal armor because it just freezes and makes them sluggish. There is a flintlock pistol in this person's hand. That is the flintlock is clapped down on the flash pan, so it was fired at some point. And for lack of a better term, this person has been melted. You can see that they are very obviously a human man, but all the exposed skin is bubbled and blistered and sort of sagging off of the bones. This person died horribly.
Okay.
Oh, and the second thing you notice, sorry, that was just the first. The second thing you notice is written on the opposite wall in what you assume is dried blood. It's kind of this brownish, reddish sort of tint, is a phrase. It says, "There bleeds the beacon," written across the wall.
All right. I, having not noticed any sound or anything like that, I move the door. I try to move the door without letting it clatter to the ground, even because it's on its hinges, barely on its hinges. And I will enter, and I will do a very quick. I will do I'll check my corners and make sure that nobody else is in here with me before looking at the physical evidence and maybe trying to find tracks from whoever did this.
As he moves further into the building, if I can't see him, I would follow behind carefully.
Yeah, you enter behind Oramel and you notice the same things he did. The smell, the smell hits you. The place appears ransacked as well. Like the stuff is knocked over, drawers have been pulled out and rifled through, stuff has been strewn. There's one window in the back, the front door, a window in the front, and those are the only points of entrance. Oramel, as you sort of scan through, check all your corners, the house is empty. There's nowhere else that anyone could be hiding. It's just you, Tippet, and the melted man.
I look out the door, sort of in the direction of anybody that's watching me, and I kind of give a signal that it's clear. And if anybody wants to approach, they may. I guess I'll do I think before I find out who did anything to him, I'm just gonna do a search of the room, like drawers and chests, and maybe even find if there's anything secreted away, hidden or anything like that.
Go ahead and give me an investigation, if you would, Oramel. And Tippet, as you walk in and you see those words on the wall, they sort of trigger something in your brain. Those are lyrics. You know those lyrics. You've heard them 1,000 times. It's a fairly well-known sea shanty in this area. The full lyrics, which I will also post in the chat, of that sort of stanza are: "So distant the dawn I yearn now to feel, and battered our hulk from mizzen to keel. 1 fathom or many I make yet to sail, and though mine own thoughts writhe and they wail, there bleeds the beacon amidst the gloam, and dwindles the hope of again glimpsing home."
So I got a 13 on my investigation check.
Okay. I know. I wanted to be like start drumming on the desk and do the whole thing, but yeah, I was like, I'm not even gonna attempt it. But as Oramel's sort of looking through and Tippet is looking at these song lyrics, what are the rest of you doing? Does anyone else enter the house as Oramel gives the all clear?
Yeah, Lutra will fall in as well. Seeing the grisly sight, and will like grimace at the smell and the look of it. But she'll look over to Oramel. Anything here look out of place to you? Well, besides and she'll just like motion to the body.
Well, I'm looking to find that out now.
And Lutra will kind of scan. She's looking for like objects, even if she has to pull it off like the body, but objects that like don't look like they belong here, like that someone else brought them in. Maybe something that got left behind or accidentally put here amongst the mess. Would there be anything like that she would see?
Yeah, go ahead and give me a investigation.
Okay. My specialty. Oh, doesn't matter that I'm terrible at it. I rolled a 20.
Hey, awesome. So Oramel's kind of looking through drawers, lifting things up, sort of looking through the house. And Lutra, you're kind of scanning around and you step near this body and you hear like a crack of glass beneath your feet. and you notice that both windows are fully intact, but there's broken glass under your feet, and you'll kind of move them around, and you move aside this sort of knocked over stool, and you find underneath a pretty something that you likely have seen before, but something that is incredibly rare. It is a daguerreotype. It is an image that has been exposed on this special metal. It's basically like a really crude photograph, and it was set in this like glass protective frame, but the glass has been broken, and the metal plate is just laying there on the floor. You lift it up and look at it, and there are 7 people on this daguerreotype, and it's kind of this weird, like, as you tilt the daguerreotype, it goes from positive to negative. Like it depends on where the light hits it, like what it looks like, and so it kind of has this like very odd, like ghostly sort of like, you tilt it just slightly and everyone's face just completely like goes white and their eyes are black. But there are 7 people sort of grouped together in this daguerreotype. They're all sort of leaning on one another, and you can see like the vague shape of like sails in the background, almost like this daguerreotype was taken on the docks. 7 people, most of them human. There's also what appears to be a dwarf woman, a halfling man, and a towering orc sort of in the background, like with his arms around everyone. But the one that you hone in on is there's this kind of slouched figure sort of on the edge of this group of people with their hood up. And they're kind of like looking forward with these strange, almost fish-like eyes, and their hands are clasped in front of them. Someone that almost looks like an amphibian creature sort of slouched next to this group of people. But it's safe to assume that this is the crew of the Magdalena.
Yeah, she'll reach down and like gently pick up the thing. Not sure of like how fragile these things are. I guess she would know. I don't.
Yeah, you would know that the metal itself is perfectly sturdy. Sorry, everyone. I know the overlay's all borked now, but just bear with us. The metal itself is incredibly sturdy and difficult to damage, but you know that any like oils on the image will like irreparably damage it. That's why the glass is sort of set over the metal.
Yeah, she'll like rummage through her pack and pull out some gloves just to make sure she doesn't get any fingerprints or anything like that on it. And we'll like pick it up and show it to the others. Seems like some sort of picture of the crew. I might be able to use this to help find someone.
Great. I suppose I could help find Reed, if at all possible. Well, let's just hope it doesn't draw us any closer to whatever did that.
I'm sure it must.
It must.
And Lutra will rummage through her pack once again, and she'll like pull out a book. It's like a little rough around the edges. It's definitely seen some wear and tear. It seems to be like quite old, even. And she'll begin flipping through the pages, and she'll say, "I think I know someone who can help us. I happen to know of quite the good tracking hound. See if we can pick up any scents, anything like that." And she'll open the book and rip a page out and show you a picture of a dog, like with just like a triumphant grin.
Is the dog close?
She'll like
Start
look
whistling like loudly.
confused, like as if like it, like how is this not obvious? And then just kind of like, oh yeah. And she'll like take the picture and crumple it up. And as she does so, almost like a magician's parlor trick, like black smoke will begin to like pour out from between her fingers. She'll like push it down onto the ground. And this is where I tell Matt that the magic item I took is a reskinned robe of useful items. And one of the things that I have as part of that are 2 mastiff hounds that I will pull the page out of this book. And out of this paper and like black tendrils will begin to form the shape of 2 dogs. Which will then slowly like begin to like sprout hair and teeth before they like take full living shape.
Michele kind of what's the word? I don't know. Sprints and then kneels and kind of slides a little bit. Really, really wanting to be close and pet the puppies.
Tippet's jaw just drops. Her eyes are huge, and she just puts her hand out and slowly starts walking towards the dogs.
Rheviadis is like peering in from the doorway. Oh, see, she's useful.
I just light my pipe and say, "The Gloam, take it."
Lutra will lean down to the dogs as if nothing strange has happened, like ignoring the reaction of the others, and she'll just talk to them like a person, basically, and see if they can find any sense from the picture or anything like that that might be familiar. See, this is my secret plan. Is you thought that I was going to do this to advance the game, but really I just summoned the dogs to just grind everything to a halt.
I was like, oh, Jeff must have like a divination spell that requires like an object that the person had as the component. Great, that's perfect. Okay, so the
do we have to feed it now?
Are they real?
How do they fit in the book?
How fast do they go?
Are they good boys?
What are their names?
What are their
Most
names?
certainly good boys.
They don't have names. They're from a book. Isn't it obvious?
Well, what do you know? It's not your book.
Things in books can have names.
They could have names in the story.
Is it a story? What's it about?
No one said it was a story.
We can vote on names.
I'm willing
Let's
to take
table
any
that
and
for
all
later.
suggestions on what they might be called.
Oscar.
No one looks like a
Yeah.
Rufus.
Oscar, Oscar, Oscar.
Perhaps all dogs are Oscar in the same way that all spiders are.
What do you mean? She doesn't get it.
All right. Before we get too involved in the naming committee, I suggest that if you have an idea of what those dogs can do to help us find our helmsman, that you do it.
Yeah, so Lutra will like present the daguerreotype and probably just a couple other objects that she can find from just around in here, just to find whatever might have a good grab to it, and like show it to these like shadow formed dogs to see if they might find anything that might bring us in any direction.
Yeah, they both like eagerly smell this this strange metal object, and you know the other things that you sort of present to them. And at first they kind of like circle around the house. They're like sniffing around the house. They sniff the melted guy, and it seemed like very concerned about what is happening there, and sort of like back up, keep their distance. And eventually, both of them kind of like wind their way back towards the entrance of the house and go out the front door, and they're kind of like barking as they're like running down the street following whatever trail this is that they have.
I suggest anyone who wants to come along step to it.
I just want to make one last investigation of this body to have it ended before.
Yes.
to have an idea of what could be the waiting for us.
Anyone who wants to, who's looking at this body, can give me an Arcana check, please.
Ooh. Or just come back here.
Dirty
seems-
20.
Michele is also pretty excellent, not just at Arcana, but at alchemy and medicine.
I
Yeah.
got a natural 20.
Oh my God. Okay.
Oh, nice. Never mind.
Sorry. I didn't mean to take the wind out of your
No,
sails
there it is.
I love rolling a nat 20 on something you're not good at, because to me it means that it's something significant that your character would have experienced and not necessarily would be educated on. So I'm going to say that this is probably something that maybe you've even seen before, Oramel. You've got some decades behind you and some really grisly work on your resume. And so maybe this is not the first melted man that you've seen. This was done by an acid, and specifically likely an alchemical grenade favored by the Ortisterium. Just based on your investigation, the way the house looks, what you know, you imagine that maybe an Ortist and a Thurland soldier were turning over this house at the same time. Maybe they ran into each other.
I can tell if are there any wounds that would suggest that this guy was bleeding, that the person, it's his blood that wrote out there bleeds the beacon?
It does not look like there are any puncture wounds or that he was bleeding. And in fact, based on how old the blood on the wall is, it likely happened before this guy came in and died in here.
Gotcha. So I look to everyone and I say, well, the good news is our helmsman has not been detained as far as I can tell. The bad news is that we are also dealing with the Ortisterium. The good news is that the Ortisterium and Thurland might be at each other's throats long enough that we could perhaps slip through them, let them fight each other. Let's go find out what this mastiff has found. But just beware. We're dealing with new threats here.
I want to ask you as well, Taylor, because you got a dirty 20 on your Arcana check. You recognize the way that this guy died as well. Do you know why you would recognize that?
How long has that Ortisterium been around?
The Crown would have you believe that time in memoriam, but in reality, it's been about 400 years.
Yeah, I think that she remembers the time when these sorts of things were, just a crude vial of acid and that had this splash pattern and you could find it across in the enemies of the Crown. And that this has evolved over time to be more effective and more contained and more deadly.
Killer. Awesome. So, assuming that the 6 of you now follow these mastiffs, content that you've found everything you can of note here in the captain's house. I don't know if I told you the captain's name, by the way. I can't remember if I did or not. It's Alden Price. Yeah, there you go. Okay, cool. Hey! Lloyd's taking notes! Okay, so the 6 of you sort of leave the house following the mastiffs down the road, and they're heading towards the docks. And the camera kind of pans up, and the rain is falling, the sky is gray, and there is a figure sort of crouched on the roof across the street, and we just get a glimpse of this this sort of wide-brimmed hat, and as the figure sort of raises their head, we see these goggle lenses set into this raven mask, these like green glowing lenses, and there's just this like monstrous hiss that kind of issues from the mask, and like a little plume of like gas, and then the figure sort of like turns in like Phantom of the Opera like cloak and disappears down the side of the house, and that is where we will end our session for tonight.
Nice.
Word.
Thank you,
That was
everyone,
great.
for watching. And thank you guys for playing. I'm going to toss it over to these guys to do their outros. I kept it to 2 hours. What? That's so awesome. I feel really good about that. Let's go ahead and go in reverse order. Aaron, why don't you go first with your outro?
Hi. Thank you all. I'm so glad to be playing with this lovely group, and back on Matt's channel. It's always a pleasure. Yeah, I have nothing more to say. My Twitter is AaronDVS. And the only thing I have to promote is, vaccinations. They're good for you. And if you have vaccinations, boosters, if you've had them in the past 6 months, or you're in a particularly dangerous field where you might need it, please get them and wear masks.
Thief-Taker Oramel says, get vaccinated.
I will find you.
I will take any thief that is unvaccinated. Taylor, go ahead.
I'm just glad to be here. It's been a delight playing with all these lovely people, and very fun. My first time playing with Tealah. It's lots of fun. Enjoy having you around. Looking forward to the next one, y'all.
I just want to point out that Paul Raven Rolls in the chat is going apeshit because there's some sort of character with like a plague doctor mask on, a Raven mask.
Him, no matter where he was.
It's like the beacon in the sky that he's like, I'm being summoned.
Someone say Ravens in here?
Lloyd, you're up.
That's me. This is so great. It's already a wacky crew, and I think I just really like the setting. It's like got a lot of nice grossness, like the kind of grossness that I enjoy, which is nice. You're all DM on Twitter, and if you want an overlay like the one you see here, then you can maybe message me there if you want that. Okay, bye.
Go ahead, T.
Thanks. I'm Tealah, and thank you. This was my first time playing in a streamed game, baby's first streamed game. So thank you all to my fellow players and my lovely and hot DM, Matt. If you enjoy
like that you had to specify just in case anyone was unclear.
If you enjoy shitty retweets and selfies of me when I feel like it, you can follow me on twitter.com as the Lady Oak. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
All right, Jeff.
Look, all I'm going to say is just remember, you gave us the magic items. I tried to warn you. I'm Jeff. Already love this game. Fantastic group of players, and I already love all these characters so much. This is like my first new game in like a long time, so it's weird to be like starting fresh, but it's good. It's nice. And I can't wait to see the rest of it.
Likewise. All right, Barker, take us home.
Everyone, I'm Barker. I'm at Inspire the Barks on Twitter, and am currently creating the next absolute tabletop adventure kit, the Battle for Arctur's Vault. And this game was amazing. All of your characters are wonderful, and I'm very thankful that you've allowed my estranged character to barnacle onto your heroic group. The investigative stuff was really cool. That was my favorite part of this game. It felt like a Call of Cthulhu game.
I do know a couple things about running Call of Cthulhu, so that's very exciting to hear. we are going to be kicking off Chapter 2 here in January. We're going to play once a month here. I think the next session is tentatively scheduled for January 12th, but I'll post on Twitter and Facebook and stuff when we know the firm date on that. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We had like quite a few people watching tonight, which is great. I really appreciate it, especially considering that I'm not very active on YouTube. So thank you. We'll see you next time. Take care. Happy gaming all. And I can't remember my outro for the Gloam. It's something we're just gonna go to the thing.
Every campaigne's a new one.
Every campaign's a new one.